Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Painted in Color podcast. I'm co-host Lauren Brown, joined by co-host Mia Araujo and Eric Wilkerson. And today we are going to talk about Mia's much celebrated book, Afia and the Land of Wonders. It has been released in the month of when, Mia? Remind me?
April. April
April.
20th. Yeah.
Yes, it's been released in April and so far has made waves across the social media sphere, bookshops, children's book, like where libraries and just everywhere. And it's a stunning book. And Mia has put a lot of time and effort and energy into this story, and it is such a wonder to behold. And I'm so proud of you. We're all so proud of Mia. So everybody take a moment to applaud Mia for releasing her book, finishing a project. We talked about this. We talked about this. And here we are. So we are going to talk about the culmination of a dream. And basically, you are our guest today, Mia, and we're going to be asking you questions. We're going to be interviewing you. So, hey, y'all.
No pressure.
No pressure. No, you're fine. But yeah, Mia, tell us a little bit about If You in the Land of Wonders. Just give us an overview, like, I don't know, summary.
Afia and the Land of Wonders is an Alice in Wonderland reimagining that I've been working on since 2012. And it's a sister story that I wrote for my twin sister. And I think I've told the elevator pitch before, but it's follows 16-year-old Afia who must choose between staying in her with her beloved twin sister in a world where she doesn't belong, or journeying alone into a magical but dangerous world to discover who she is. And it's really about embracing your curiosity and facing your deepest fears, and about self-discovery and all those good things. So it's also fully illustrated. So I wrote and illustrated it, and it's got 30 acrylic paintings and just under 20 pencil drawings. The physical book is right here. If it'll let me show it. Oh my gosh.
It's doing its best.
It is trying.
Look,
And
it's
I
so
got to
cute.
design the spine, which was so fun. All of it, like the cover, obviously, and it's a wraparound cover, so there's the back. And let me see if I can do a little flip through without it screwing this up, but oh my God. Ah,
Wait, show one of the illustrations off if you can.
yeah, that's probably a better idea. Just flip to
I
one.
should like grab your originals and like show them as well.
Oh, and I guess this is actually the only digital painting in this entire book. It's the title page
Oh,
that I had to. Oh my God, it really doesn't want to show it. Whatever, I'll
oh,
do
because
I'll
it's
do the
green.
position thing. But yeah, I can tell you about that later. But it was like the very last request after I had turned everything in to basically. Well, I mean, they told me a little before, but I was like, I'm not going to make the deadline to paint that traditionally, so I painted in Procreate. But everything else is in acrylic. And yeah, anyway, I'll stop
That's
right.
gorgeous, Mia. Yeah. So, wait, Eric, it looks like you have a question cooking.
I would have never known that you
Oh,
painted any
yay.
part of this digitally.
It was just
Same.
the one, but yeah, I'm glad. That's very flattering because I'm not a digital painter.
Clearly
It,
are. I mean, like, if you
it
can make your
came
digital
right
painting
through.
distinct, not distinct from your traditionals, I think you're a digital painter, Mia.
I guess I feel like an imposter because I haven't even done 20 of them professionally, or even 10 of them professionally, So anyway.
Doesn't matter.
There's no imposter syndrome there. If you know what you're doing traditionally, it comes through your hand and once you know how the tools and once you know the digital tools and you know how to paint, it just flows.
Yeah. Yeah. But it looks beautiful, Mia. It's so gorgeous. I have like two copies of the book at my house. I still need to give the other one to somebody, but it's like I just want both of them so much.
Oh, thank you.
So you said there was 30 acrylic. Is it acrylic or oil?
Acrylic, yeah, I paint only
Acrylic.
acrylics, yeah.
Okay. So 30 acrylic illustrations. How many pencil drawings?
Just under 20. I think it was 15 or 16. I don't remember the final count. It kept changing, so I didn't do a final. But yeah.
So did you keep a timeline for how long you were spending per page or per illustration?
Oh
Well,
my
first
God.
let me ask you this. How long did it take to complete from the start to when you got when you started working under Scholastic to like finish? Because like I think that's important to know too. Because you
Yeah,
also wrote this thing.
yeah, I did. And that's the thing. Most of the development stuff is what took so long. Because it's like when you say you worked, everybody's asking me, when you say you worked 12 years on it, how long did you actually work on the final book? And it's like a part of that, the first 10 years really was working on it part-time. Because as you all know, and I've said many times on the show, I was working full-time serving and doing conventions and things. So I was had very limited times in each of those years to really work on the art. And even from the beginning, it was like it was this idea, but it went through so many different phases, story wise, you know, style wise, me trying to train myself and learn all these skills. I did not have the skills to even do the stuff I'm doing even 5 years ago when I started, you know. So it was a lot of really starting from zero, writing and art wise, you know. And maybe not zero with art because I had been doing art professionally before, but you know what I mean, just to do an
Mhm.
illustrated novel. I had mostly been doing portraits, so to do whole illustrated scenes and stuff, it was a huge learning curve. But November 2021, we pitched to Scholastic and we got the deal in early of 2022. And I think we finally signed the contract in April of 2022. And I turned in my final manuscript, the first time I'd gotten to the end, really, of the story in its form in May of 2022. So from May till January of 24, I worked on the manuscript doing revisions. And then from June 2022 until August 24, I was doing all the final art. So I actually had to start on the final art before the manuscript was approved because, and this is kind of a longer story, my original editor left the company and I had to wait to
Um,
be assigned a new editor. So I couldn't wait. I couldn't waste that time.
yeah.
I knew all these paintings had to be done. So I just had to start painting scenes that I was pretty sure would not be cut because they're pretty integral. And I did not paint it in order. So that really helped. But yeah, a solid 2 years ish on the art, but also doing a lot of very heavy editing on the manuscript throughout. So it was not like pure painting. Yeah, so a lot of
That's
work.
awesome. So with that in mind, to answer Era's question, did you have some kind of schedule or like way of work, like methodology of working?
I did, but I feel like I was constantly breaking it. Like I was constantly, the most hilarious thing, if you see in my schedule, was like, by this date, I need to be done with these paintings, and it would just keep getting pushed down. And it's like, I just remember in July, I think I had like 8 paintings left, and some of them were the big ones. I painted all the double page spreads, 18 by 24 inches, and all the single pages, like 11 by 14, 12 by 16. So they were
Um,
much bigger than the final page because obviously I wanted to do more detail and stuff. But I was saving some of the biggest paintings, like the Tea Party, for instance, for the end because I didn't want to paint it too early where I knew my skills would, you know, get better as I did more of these paintings. But what was kind of, you know, backfiring there is that I was running out of so much time and I had so many paintings to do that were so detailed towards the end that I honestly don't even know how I got that done. I just, aside from just all I was doing was painting, like doing nothing else. Like my sister had to come visit me from LA and take batches of painting up to my photographer in LA while I was finishing the next one so I wouldn't take a break, you know, and just keep painting. So
wow.
because again with original art, you have to get every painting shot like digitally so that they can have, that was actually a question I got in one of my talks was like how do you get the art into the book since it's traditional. It's like, yeah, a photographer takes a high res image and then you have to do all the retouching and editing
Yeah,
out all the specs and adding bleed and oh, that was a whole thing. So yeah, it was definitely a learning process for sure. All of it, just from scheduling, but to also just production of making a book like this, you know?
I have so many questions about that.
Did you
Yeah.
you had specific layout pages for the book? Like so you knew what the dimensions for each piece were going to be based on where in the book they you like how did you decide which scenes were going to get illustrated and which were just going to be described in a chapter?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, my editor was amazing enough to tell me very early on what the dimensions were going to be before we even had a book designer or whatever. So I already knew the proportions that each had to be. And while I was waiting on her, for instance, to read, I think she had given me a full edit, so I knew kind of like the shape of the final manuscript. So I couldn't do this too early, is what I'm saying, because I
Mhm.
was still editing the manuscript. At some point, I did with a friend of mine that knew InDesign, laid out a couple sample chapters with a layout that we made up ourselves. Because again, the design team wasn't assigned until like a year. I want to say like a year and a half after I started painting, and I needed to know this. You know, I needed to know
Yeah.
exactly the question you're asking. So my friend and I, laid out like a few sample chapters to show like, okay, this is how it's going to be. And then I think I actually laid out the rest of it using that template she made and just was doing that myself, like from scratch, just like, so some of it was a combination of I already knew while I was writing that there were certain scenes I wanted to paint, so I was already doodling those. But as I was doing those layouts, there were some scenes that I had initially wanted to paint that when we did when I kind of did that final layout, I realized it didn't really work with the flow.
Mm.
And actually, a lot of the illustrations, funnily enough, I was planning as landscapes and later changed to more scenes that featured Afia reacting to things as opposed to her witnessing things. There was a lot of editing in terms of what the content of the illustration. And then I would basically take all the thumbnails and lay them all out together, almost like color keys that you see for animated films, to sort of see the flow with color and lighting and stuff, and then just edit that out. But yeah, it was a process because again, we handed that design to my design team when they came on board and said, this is kind of what we're looking for. And it was really tricky because then there were things changing, like the manuscript itself, the length, the number of pages. It was a very rough estimate at first, but once we started getting more answers, and there were more, parameters coming in. So there were, luckily everything sort of fit by that time of the things that I had decided on. But I think there were some like later decisions, for instance, like a full page illustration I was going to do of Afia and the Queen actually turned into a spot illustration, because there was no room in that chapter for another painting, and just things like that. So some of it was pre-planned and some of it had to like organically happen as we were trying to fit it all together. But
Yeah.
but again, my design team had never designed anything like this. Like our art director, she mainly works in picture books, so she was really familiar with picture heavy, books, obviously, but not something like this that's novel length. So but they were incredible. They were really patient with me because I
Mhm.
had a lot of ideas, obviously, of what I wanted my book to look like. But in the end, I think they went above and beyond. My designer, especially, like she did such an incredible job um, of just kind of taking what I had in mind and making it way better than I could have imagined. So I really lucked out with the team too.
That's awesome,
So
Mia.
I know it's called an illustrated novel.
Yeah.
Um, just for people that don't know, including myself, like what's the difference between that and a graphic novel?
So graphic novels sequential, right? So it's like comic books. Like there's several panels and a page, and it's showing you kind of like a sequence, sort of like a film, right? Where you're seeing an entire scene play out, you're seeing dialogue exchanged frame to frame. That's just way more art in a graphic novel.
Mhm.
And it's like there's actually, in terms of the design of comics and graphic novels, we have an understanding of how they're supposed to be read in terms of pictures and words, how they're supposed to interact. And that's something we actually take for granted because it's something that's kind of we understand as an art form, in terms of the words never compete with the art. They always go together because of the way that's been designed. But with illustrated novels, what's challenging is that they all vary because they kind of are dependent on the content a bit. So the typical illustrated novels from the past, when you think of like the illustrated, I don't know, Rackham illustrated books or
Yeah.
NC Wyeth and stuff, it would usually be like a chapter header illustration, like a full page, plate, or just like a bunch of illustrations in the middle of the book, just like a set of plates in the middle, and just maybe some header spot illustrations. That's kind of typical and I guess classic. But with my book, I think I didn't really want to stick to a formula per chapter. I just kind of wanted it to feel organic. I was for good or bad, I guess, because I had to figure that out. But I really did just sort of choose which scenes to illustrate a bit intuitively, but like I feel like an illustration should go here, or I just want to paint this one and I'm being stubborn about it. So some chapters had three full color illustrations and a few chapters had none. So I was actually amazed it did work out because I think I remember some artist friends were a little skeptical at first, or that it wasn't, more specific or more, you know, balanced in that way. But so maybe I did it in a kind of unconventional way, but it ended up working out, I guess. So
How did you land on the format of visual or sorry, illustrated novel in the first place? Did you always know that was supposed to be a illustrated novel, or did it change as the planning process for over the course of over 10 years? Like how did that develop for you?
it was always supposed to be an illustrated novel. The thing is that I originally thought that I would just use Lewis Carroll's text with my illustrations. Like I would just be illustrating it.
Oh,
But it was kind of naive because the story was so different. Like even when I was kind of going really close to his plot, like I couldn't just use the same text. So then I was like, okay, I'll lightly reimagine it and just like adapt it exactly his scenes in the order they appear with just my characters. And I had that version until 2020
Wow.
And because I was focusing so much on the art and the character arcs and things like that. But I think the this final version, I finally had a really amazing friend that was honestly was like, this is so boring because it's like you already
Oh,
know what's gonna happen. And he's just like, I think I said this before too. I just had no faith in myself that I could write a story of my own. That's part of why I reimagined something existing because I'm like, I already know this works, so I don't have to make anything myself. Um, and I'm still very afraid of writing even after having written this, but I was so afraid then that I didn't want to take the training wheels off, so to speak. So it took a lot of courage to be like, no, I'm just going to reimagine this and on my own, like really lean into my own versions, not only of the characters but of the sequence, the way that the story kind of goes about and all that. I'm sorry, I feel like I've forgotten what your question is because I'm
no,
like,
you answered it beautifully. It was basically like how like it being a visual novel, was that always the plan? But
yeah.
that's actually really interesting that it was originally just going to be the original text with new illustrations. Um, was it just that friend's feedback that pushed you to spend so much time learning about how to write, or was it other factors as well? Did you realize that it wasn't actually going to work as what you thought? And how did you overcome that fear in the first place? Because that's really scary to go from being a very, like, obviously very talented illustrator and then going into writing, which is a foray that, like, a realm that you really haven't done professionally yet.
Yeah, it was a couple things actually, because I actually think before this friend helped me out, I had another couple friends. It was almost like a few, like, not red flags, but like a few, signs along the way that I should be going this way, and I kept ignoring them. So I remember one of them was Ian McCaig saying, "Don't call it Alice in Wonderland." He was like, and I think his editor too said the same thing, where he was like, when people Google search Alice in Wonderland, they won't find your book first; they'll find every other version.
Mm,
And I was like, no, but it has to be Alice. Like, this is a whole thing, It's like they know if I change the name, who's gonna know or care about this? It was that. So I was like scared of doing that. And then another set of friends, and Angela and Tony DiDerlizzi said the same thing. Like they were like, "Don't call it Alice in Wonderland. Come up with your own character names. Come up with your own versions of these characters." And I was like, "But the Cheshire Cat's my favorite. I don't want to change his name. What's going to be better than the Cheshire Cat?" I was comparing myself to Lewis Carroll, saying I can't do better. But that was the thing. I feel like
mm,
finally I realized his work exists. I'm not going to ruin it by doing my own version. And
yeah.
actually, my version's going to be different and its own thing. And it's like, I just had to suck it up and just do it. But I think the thing that it was funny is just like thinking back in 2020 when I had that draft that was so similar. I had changed all the names and it's like, and the things that were happening, but it was still very similar plot.
Yeah.
I like had to tear that band-aid off, but I really thought back then I'm almost done with this. It just needs one pass of edits, and I had no idea it was going to take 4 more years to
Oh,
get it to the final form. So I think to me the most inspiring part about that in retrospect is that back then I had no idea how much work I would need to do. But it didn't matter that I didn't know those things. I learned them along the way. And I think back then I used to think I had to know everything before I wrote a book, because there's so much knowledge you do have to write something about the world, about yourself, about things you don't know. Like in this case, obviously the cultures I'm inspired by. Like there's a ton of things I don't know that you have to know enough about to write about. But I don't think you have to know all that stuff up front. And I think that was so liberating to learn that is that you can, just to say what I already said, is like learn it along the way and mess up and edit it and revise it. And it's just it's not so bad if your first draft is horrible. Like you can still keep revising it, you know what I mean, and make it better. So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love that, Mia. Um, I think, well, I don't want to keep asking questions. Eric, if you have one.
My question, because I've thought about writing a novel. I used to think about that back in high school, like being a writer or something like that. And I would do basic outlines of stories and like all sci-fi stuff. And then I would get to a point where I'd be writing and then go, oh, wait, this is a Star Trek episode. Or or like I'm just changing the names and I didn't even realize it until I read it and I'm like, oh wait, no, this isn't gonna work. But I think I read from your bio on your website, you have a degree. You went to school for creative writing or something like that, right?
I
You took
minored in creative
classes in it?
writing. Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
But again, no shade to my art school, but it was not really I didn't learn a lot in that degree. Like there was one really good class where we actually had creative writing assignments, but and then there was another class where we read 14 novels in one semester, and talked about them. And then there was kind of like, these are the only things I remember from my writing minor. We had this big project where we had to write a novel or something, and it was a terrible novel. I wish I don't even want to remember it right now. It was really bad. But those are the main three things. And I'm like, I can't remember any of the stuff, any of the fundamentals of storytelling, or just all the stuff I've learned to make this book. Like, it all happened in the last 4 years. So it's just like, I feel like also because I had stopped writing after graduating up until I wrote this. So I grew up writing when I was a kid. Like, I would write and illustrate stories ever since I was like 8 years old, maybe even younger. But and I studied it, but then I took that huge break. And I feel like, again, it's kind of like that thing when you go to art school. At least for me, I went to art school, but most of the fundamentals and the things I feel like I know now, I learned on my own after graduating. So it's almost like it created a foundation of some skills and some, practice analyzing literature and things like that. But the stuff I really understand and the things I'm trying to do with my writing, I feel like I learned in the last 4 years.
But
Um,
it was an interest that was there. It
yeah,
wasn't something where you just said kind of like me, you're like, I'm gonna write a story.
yeah,
You knew what you were doing. The foundation was there, but the interest was also there, and then you just had to polish it up.
and get
Uh,
over a million fears to do it. Yeah.
I
Writing is a very scary thing,
It
yeah.
Yeah,
is.
I can't. I'm still trying to finish reading a novel that I started back in college. Like I don't have the attention span. I start reading a novel and then halfway down the page, I'm thinking of something completely different. My mind has wandered off. Takes me 3 or 4 times just to finish a chapter. It's
I,
terrible.
I feel
Erica,
like
you
you
tried
haven't.
audiobooks? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on, Mia.
No, I was gonna say I feel like you haven't found the book you love yet, because I've done that with a bunch of books, like where I just lose
Really?
interest.
That's a thing?
That's
'Cause
the
like
thing. Oh yeah.
I
Oh my
thought I
God, all
really
the
liked this
time.
book.
Or I suggest
Okay.
audiobooks because especially like, for ADHD, especially because it's really hard for me to take something and focus on it, especially in the beginning of it. But in audiobook, I get to draw while listening to it, and I get to have both of those things filter, especially if I'm inking or something. I don't have to use a lot of my brain cells, so it's just plug and play. So audiobooks actually really help me go through a lot of books, and I've read way more books because of audiobooks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of audiobooks, can you
Yeah, speaking of
tell
audio, what a great segue.
us? You saw how I did that?
So clever.
Uh, speaking of audiobooks, can you tell us a little bit about something happening for you?
The audiobook version of Afia and the Land of
I
Wonders.
still can't believe this is real. Like, I remember when I was even dreaming about who an audiobook narrator would be, because again, they hadn't told me early on like how that process worked. And I think it was February of last year, maybe. No, I can't even remember the timelines now. Because it was like maybe it's February of this year when they were just like, who do you want? It was like really last minute, but they're saying like, who do you want as a narrator, or what kind of narrator do you want? I think they were mostly asking me to describe the voice, and I was trying to describe them, but I just said, here's two names that I would love to have. And one of those names was Wunmi Masaku, who was in Scavenger's Reign. She was in Loki. She was in, I'm blanking on Lovecraft
Lovecraft
Country.
Country.
And
Sinners.
most recently Sinners, yeah. But I think ever since I saw her in Lovecraft Country, I was just blown away by her and just like enamored with her. But hearing her in Scavenger's Reign, like she was the voice of one of the main characters, I was like, that is the voice I want reading my book. She
Oh,
just has
dude.
this kind of timeless, otherworldly, just very like um, unique voice, but it also has a lot of warmth to it. And it was just like a pipe dream where I just threw it in there, just going like, I don't know, this is like dream, like shoot my shot, right? I'll just ask for it. They can just say no. And we didn't hear back for months. And then in the end it ended up happening that they were just, I guess, negotiating, but she's the narrator of my audiobook. So I don't even know. And as far as I know, it's her first audiobook too, which I'm like super honored.
This is her first
Yeah,
audiobook. That's so
crazy.
cool.
Honestly, I told the story on my Instagram, but on the way to my launch event for at the bookstore that had held my launch event when my book came out, my partner was driving and my sister and I were in the car, and we put on the digital version of audiobook that we got an early, an early copy because it didn't come out until like a couple weeks after the book came out. and just hearing her say the name, say the like my name, the dedication, say my sister's name, we all kind of like, oh my God. And then as she starts reading that first chapter, we just all started crying. We were just like, oh my God. It was just so emotional. Like you have no idea. Like anyway, I'm just, I'll stop now, but it was really
Oh,
incredible.
Mia.
I was just gonna ask you, did you cry? But
I
no,
was
I
also
know
gonna
you
ask.
did.
Oh
There's
yeah, I cried
no
multiple
way.
times. We listened to the whole chapter by the time we got there, and it's like I feel like I teared up at least 3 times just and during that chapter alone. But as I listened to the rest of it, I don't know. I have this thing with my writing. I know this is unrelated to your question, but like reading my own writing back, I have this thing where I'm like, I don't want to read it. And I felt the same way listening to it, where I was like, I don't want to hear this part that I'm worried about. And then she would read it and be like, oh, it's okay. It wasn't that bad. But it's
Yeah.
almost like I had this weird fear about it, about hearing it too. But she did such an incredible job. It wasn't even her, it was like me, right? But it's almost like she made me hear my words in a totally different way that God, like I never thought I would ever have an experience like that. Like have such an
Wow.
amazing actor just read your words in such a loving way. Like, oh fuck. Sorry. Bleep. It was incredible.
We're not like we're not monetized. Like it's
I know, but I shouldn't.
so cute. But yeah, like I feel like hearing a celebrity say the words that you've written, it probably added like an air of legitimacy to your work that you weren't giving yourself. But knowing that it's far and beyond good enough for someone like Wumi Mosako to have her first audiobook debut on your words, reading your words in her comforting, soothing, because it's very earthy, wonderful voice. It's just, I can't even imagine what that must feel like.
I think it also feels kind of again imposter syndrome me because I'm like I'm nobody, I'm this first time author, but it is kind of like, hey everybody, just ask, you never know, they might say yes, it's like
That's right.
nothing by asking. And so I'm so happy I did, because I almost didn't. Like my partner was like, no, definitely ask, like what are you, crazy?
Yeah,
I'm so
definitely.
glad he encouraged me to do it, so yeah.
Gosh, that's so cool, Mia. Oh my goodness. I feel like I had another question, but I just want to soak in that moment. I'm just so happy for you. I mean, it's like there's so many things that you do deserve. And I know it's a lot of fear. It's a terrifying journey to write a book and like actually finish it. Um, And I just, I'm just so proud of you for doing it. And I also wanted to know because a lot of people they start a project, and we've talked about this on the show before. They start a project and they start out really excited about it and super passionate, and then in the dooring of the project, something wanes. And it is the excitement and the passion and realizing that this process is actually not glamorous at all. It's very messy and ugly sometimes. But yet you persevered and finished it. And I wanted to know more about that. What kept you going in the project and how did you keep like going along finishing it? I know that we talked a little bit about setting a schedule, but I want to know more about the emotional side of it. Like how did you keep going when things got tough?
Again, from the beginning, it was a story I had to write because I was trying to write it for my sister. And it was basically, I moved out for the first time in 2012, and it was a really hard year. It's probably the hardest year we ever had in our friendship and in our relationship just in general. And it kind of felt like one of those things where I'm sure we've all had this feeling where it's like, I don't know how to tell someone this, even though I love them so much, but I'm going to make a piece of art to try to communicate that. And that's what this book was from the beginning. And I think that is what got me through all of it, where it's like, it was not about me. It was not about my fear. It was not about my insecurities, about every aspect of this, because there were so many of them. At the end of the day, it was like, I had to just zero in on this book is for her. And that is a lot of pressure too. I was obviously really afraid that she wouldn't like it and that she would not understand why I had written it or whatever. But at the end of it, I think it was so worth just everything, in the sense that it went beyond what I could have imagined in terms of, even before the book was finished, like our relationship, kind of like evolved alongside it in a way, like if that's the right word. But it's just like we got closer just in life, so that helped. But just seeing her, read every draft and her reactions and things like that. And then I don't know, it just like when you have one person, a specific person you're making something for, that is sort of like your compass, right? And you do ask yourselves these questions where it's just like, if no one else would read it, would I still make this? And the answer was always yes. but yeah, I think I had a lot of self-doubt in a lot of aspects about it, but that's definitely what got me through it.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say,
Did
but
she give you, did your sister give you notes or like through each draft or like,
I don't know that I showed her every single draft, but enough of the significant changes because it was again pretty long, and I can't remember. I think I was showing her chunks at a time too, at some point. But yeah, she would give me notes in terms of more broad notes about like, oh, I'm not sure what like maybe this would be more clear, or like I wasn't sure that these characters, this or that. But it's like what the crazy part to me is that she just accepted the characters for who they were. There was never like, I don't think this character should be like this, or you know what I mean? It was a more like I don't want to speak for her. What I'm saying is like it seems like she just really responded to the characters as I had intended them to be in the world, and it was more just like story notes and that sort of thing. But again, it meant so much to me that she put herself through that, to read the whole thing for me. So um, yeah, I don't know. That's a really rambling answer to your question. I'm sorry.
That wasn't a ramble at all.
well, I wanted to ask you about the art that you created for it specifically. Now, since it's your vision, your designs, your compositions, did you have to go through an approval process or was there a lot of feedback from Scholastic?
So actually, the approval process and all that was mostly on the cover, and the interiors I was left pretty much to my own devices, and
Ooh.
it was pretty incredible. But like towards the end, what was cool is that my art director, who again had experience with picture books, she had really great eye for like continuity, so she was actually catching things like my process was not the most efficient with design and all this kind of stuff. Like I even though I worked on this for so long, I always dreamed of, oh, I'm gonna use like an animation pipeline for this, where I'll do character designs and then I'll do background designs and then I'll do prop designs and then I'll lay out the illustrations. And that did not happen. It was like very haphazard. It was very much like Afia had this hairstyle for the longest time, and then all of a sudden I changed it, or her costume or whatever. Like it was like very chaotic, like in a lot of ways, with elements of that sort of professional pipeline, but super chaotic. So there was a few illustrations where she has a bracelet because there's a transformation that happens, and then she doesn't have the bracelet. And that AD was really great at saying she shouldn't have a bracelet in this one because this part of the story happened. So she was catching some details
Mhm.
like that I missed. Or she'd be like, her face actually doesn't look on model in this one, and I'd be like, oh good. So it's like that they were catching things like that, which was amazing because I did not, my brain was so fried at that point that I needed that that as a backup. But yes, I was very grateful that they were very hands off. Not that I don't trust their judgment, but that they weren't trying to steer me in any direction, both in the story and the art. Because again, my editor, she made one comment that I disagreed with, but everything else was like, and she was fine with me disagreeing with her too. Is like they did not try to change the story I had in mind. So I really lucked out because I have heard from other people in publishing that that's not always the case.
Mm.
Um,
What was the comment, if you're allowed to say?
oh, that there should be more romance in it than I wanted.
Oh,
Which was not it's not my forte, but originally was going to be published as YA, and at the last minute it was changed to middle grade because they said there was nothing in it that was inappropriate for that audience.
mm.
And I actually think that was the perfect choice because it's like, yeah, this is not a YA book. Like YA is very specific in the type of story it is, and
Yes.
it's like you can't put that label on it and then not deliver because people get mad,
Yeah.
just get upset that it's be like what, and they'll get confused. So it's like I think actually middle grade feels a bit more what is the word? I don't want to say diverse, but it feels more like open.
Accessible?
Yeah, accessible, but also like there's more freedom for authors to do slightly different things. There are definitely trends in middle grade as well, but it's not so you don't have to adhere to them quite as much, I feel, as YA.
Gotcha.
From what I've seen, middle grade, you can do a lot more magical type stories. YA feels at times like there's an agenda or there's some message that they have to try to push through for just depending on the story, but I don't know. It felt like it was the right place for your story, especially with the visuals. I just can't see how you'd squeeze in some romance.
Yeah.
And
I mean, again, I don't think
definitely.
it would have been that hard maybe for another author. I'm not somebody who writes romance, so I'm like, I'm not gonna force it. It's gonna be terrible. You're either really good at that or you're not. And also I just feel like when I was growing up, there were a lot of animated films with female main characters that always had romance, and I always kind of I really wanted it, like, relationships with male characters that don't always end up in romance. Like that is possible, right?
I do appreciate that in the book. It doesn't end up in romance. Like there's like maybe like a romantic lilt to it, but nothing so explicit and nothing so it doesn't carry through. It's like they were friends and then then they weren't. And then there was more to uncover there. But I really like having that set up instead of that romance. I think it would have muddied it too. So good on you for sticking to your guns and saying like, no, this is actually not my vision and I'm not going to do this. That's really awesome. Um, I wanted to know a little bit more about what got it noticed by Scholastic in the first place. Like, was it, and also just like, I guess maybe generally, let's start with the agent process. Because as somebody who doesn't know how to get an agent and doesn't know what that looks like, just for our audience, what was that process like? And then how did you end up getting the deal with Scholastic?
I mean, I'm the wrong person to ask because it was a very atypical process, but
Mm.
Victoria Ying has a really great querying an agent page on her website. I think she still has that up, but she had it back when she was on the illustrated novel panel that we did for Lightbox virtually.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you really want to know the actual process, like you kind of build a query, which is kind of like a pitch letter to an agent that you feel represents they represent authors that do the type of work you want to do or publish the kinds of books you want to write. So it should be more of like a targeted thing, kind of like, I guess, pursuing an AD for illustration in that way, but you have to kind of write a pitch letter about your story and have a full manuscript. It kind of varies depending on if you're doing a graphic novel or whatever, but it was during the pandemic and it was basically the first and only time my work went viral. It was that painting I did in 2019 of all the characters from my book, and it was like an early concept painting. I took it to Gen Con that year. And then like 2 years later, it went viral on Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram like the same week. And I remember I was like not on social media. I was taking hiatus. I was trying to finish writing, and my email started blowing up. I was getting all these new patrons. I was like, this never happens. And I was getting all these like shop orders. I'm like, what is going on? And again, just some random people had just posted that same image and everyone
Mm.
was responding to it. And yeah, through basically that whole thing, I met my agent. And I remember we got on the phone, and I think I had the outline of the final this final version, but I didn't have a final. I think I was in the process of writing a first chapter. And she basically, I got 2 chapters done and she read those and then signed me on from that. But I think the thing for me that I connected with our conversation is that from the beginning, just hearing, she basically wanted to know why I was writing this, and I told her the whole story. And there was just this connection, but it felt like serendipity. It literally did. I don't know. There was
Oh.
just something about her energy and the way we just kind of got off on that conversation that I just felt like I just knew from that call that this is my agent. And or this is the person I want to work with. I didn't know she wanted to work with me.
Mhm.
But also just that she didn't hesitate at the fact that it was going to be fully illustrated from a debut author. So it's like I could just tell that she got exactly what I want to do. She didn't, and she was fully in support of that. And like I said, she read those 2 chapters, and then that was in January, I think. And then we had it from January to November to basically get 7 chapters. So usually you submit an entire manuscript, but we wanted to try to submit it before the end of the year. So I got 7 chapters done, and all the sample art was the art I had done for conventions because I didn't do any new art for the. I think I had some concept drawings, but it wasn't any of the final illustrations. And we pitched that to 24 publishers. And I think I lost count after the 10th or 12th publisher that said no. Basically, everyone was saying absolutely not going to print this in full color. It was in the middle of the pandemic. It was like, I think like printing overseas was insanely expensive and slow. And it's again, unproven author, unproven sort of style of book, right? So Scholastic was the only one that said yes. And this was right before Christmas break, like right before they closed for Christmas. And they basically made a preempt offer, which means they want to make an offer and have me not listen to any others in the new year. Um,
Oh.
but after, so let me back up. They actually met with me first. So I met with the editor and the head of the imprint, with Regina, and they kind of like interviewed me in essence, like, what's your book about? And how'd you like all the questions you're asking me kind of condensed into an hour meeting. And after that, they made me the offer. And then, like I said, we accepted. But the crazy thing is, on that first call that Regina told me, oh my God, I just had the most amazing conversation with their editor. She was like, they had no problem with it being full color. They were like, we absolutely understand the vision. They're like, we will put in whatever it takes to make this in full color. And so they were the
Wow.
only ones, kind of like Regina, that did not question at all what I was trying to do. And I thought that was so insane because I'm like, they haven't read a full book from me. I'm nobody, you know, I've never done this. Like, I'm basically telling everyone I'm going to do this and I've never done it before. It just seemed insane. So I just feel very lucky that these people trusted in me. And again, that's part of why I just felt like I could not let any of these people down. They invested so much in me, you know, like I just didn't want to disappoint anybody. So I just worked my ass off to hold it right. But yeah.
And you really did. And I mean, that's also sounds like one of the motivating factors keeping you going through the project too. It's like not just the fact that the story was, made for somebody like, and it was still, made for yourself too. It's a very personal story that draws from your very personal experience. But it's also the fact that, this wild sequence of events had happened and it seems like luck, but it's not really luck. It's just one of those things that you put your work online, you put your work out there in a place where people could find it. And it was unique enough and beautiful enough that people resonated with it. And that's kind of what happens when you make art that is, very much like exactly what you want to make. You're not apologizing for it, you're not holding back, even if you apologize for yourself a lot, which is ridiculous because it's like you're so amazing and talented. But when you don't apologize for your own work and you're like, here is my vision, I just want to make this thing happen, somebody will eventually notice. And like the fact that it took a year for that to happen, but it happened. And I'm so glad. I don't know. It's a testament to continuing to try and continuing to push. Even when things get really tough. Because I know that, you've talked about your life a lot on the show. And things have been really tough. It's like it's been, hard being an independent illustrator. But look at you now. Look at you.
I mean, again, it's like I'm in probably the exact same financial position I was when I started waiting tables, but I have a book now, so
You
I
have a
mean, it's
book.
well worth it. For me, that was worth it. But yeah, it's definitely not a lucrative career by any means. But again, that's not why I got into this. I just want to make the stuff. I guess I've just been stubborn and maybe dumb. I don't know, but it's like I just really want to make things that I'm 1,000% passionate about. And and that I can't make any other way, you know, and just whatever it takes, I will do anything, honestly. Like, and I'm just really lucky too that my partner, I have to give him a shout out, but it's like he got to keep his job during the pandemic. I did not, but and I did have the option to go back, but he said, no, work on your book. And I will always be so grateful to him for that. But also just like, again, he's an artist that wants to make his own things, but it's like I could not have made this without his support. And I think that I wish that wasn't the case, that the independent artists needed that kind of financial support either already from themselves or from a partner. But it is the harsh reality of making independent work, or is that even the right word? It's just like making original work where it's like it's your own thing, right? It is really hard, and it's like I think it's just it's good to have that awareness when you start, but it should never be a compromise in terms of if you have a story to make, like you can figure out a way to do it, you know. um, but I did want to say one more thing that you brought up that reminded me. When my stuff went viral, I think the thing that helped was that it was not just that one image that I had. People could click onto my website and see like 10 other images of this, and it seemed like a world that was already being built. And even though I didn't have a whole story, those images were telling a story already that everybody that saw it understood what I was trying to do. I think that's super important. And I think that also like you can be given an opportunity like that, like a lot of eyeballs or a lot of people being interested, but then you have to step up to the plate and deliver. And when somebody asks you to write 2 chapters or seven or a whole manuscript, you have to do it, you know. And
Yeah.
I think that that was really hard, but it's just but yeah, I just think that that's something to keep in mind too when you put your work out there, like your projects out there when it's kind of half made like I was doing, to just know that that might be around the corner, and you have to be willing to just you know to put everything down and do that, you know. So anyway.
No, that's a really good point too. I think I was at the Fantasy Art Workshop a few weeks ago, and Howard Lyon had said, "Be ready to get lucky."
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you did was you had a body of work already visible, ready to go, so that when people got to follow through that link, they immediately connected and got it. And I feel like a lot of people who are trying to look for that kind of lightning in a bottle, that kind of success, they are like, I don't know how to get there. I don't know what to do. And it's like, well, does your art tell a story? Like, what is your art saying? Is your art fully authentic to your, like, to what you want to say as an artist? Does it tell a story? Does it have a through line? What are people connecting to here? I think a lot of people don't think about the intentionality behind their art. And I think a part of the reason why it resonated so much is you have a lot of intention behind your work. You have a clear vision, you have a clear point of view, and you had a story that you knew you wanted to tell. And you're going to tell it the hell and high water. You're like, I'm
Yeah.
going to tell the story. And that perseverance shows through in all of your work. So, yeah, it's something to not be slept on, but I just want people to kind of like just think about that if they're also trying to, get that sense of resonance at that moment. Make your art with intention, really mean it, and put that out there so that people can really digest it. So, yeah. Well, do we have it? Is there anything else that you want to talk about the book that you wish we touched on?
Oh, I mean, I think maybe a little bit about like after putting it out, because that's something
Oh
people
yeah.
about as well, and I didn't either. There was such a learning curve of like being in a new industry or a new, art field, right? And everyone that you're in. And I've been, in the gallery world, I've done conventions and now publishing. So I feel like I've been learning a lot of new areas to present my art. And yeah, it's just been interesting just kind of learning how authors kind of get themselves out there and just like in terms of how many millions of books are put out every year, and I was really lucky that Scholastic definitely put a lot behind me in terms of getting me out to I got to go to the AL not ALA TLA, sorry. TLA was a Texas Library Association conference in Dallas and a New Orleans Book Festival. And, they did a lot. They like sent copies of my book to whoever I wanted. But even still, it is literally just like you are just trying to get everyone to know that your book exists in the world. And that is just normal because nobody knows who you are. And it's just good to know that going in because I feel like I think that if you put a lot of expectations into to how people will know about it, if you yourself don't have a huge following, I guess I should put that as a caveat. I don't have a big social media following or a lot of of a huge audience or anything. So it's like maybe it might be different for somebody who does. But if you are similar to me in terms of that sort of audience, it's just going to take time, and to just not let that discourage you because it's like the triumph to me is getting the book made, seeing it on some bookshelves, like physically is rare these days because not every new author gets their book in a bookstore anymore, especially Barnes and Noble. This was kind of being talked about on Twitter a few years ago that they basically stopped stocking every new title and they only stock ones that they think are going to sell or ones that already do sell. So it is really difficult if you think about how many millions of books come out each year to have even one copy of your book in a Barnes and Noble. So to me, every time I see one, I'm like, or anytime I see one, I'm like, it's a unicorn. It's here. But I think if you before that, I would have been like, just one copy, what? And I would think that's a bad thing. But it's so interesting how all this stuff is relative in every industry. Like the more you know about something, it means something different than when you don't know about it. So I don't know if that's kind of a convoluted way of saying just like the triumph in publishing to me is making the thing and having it out there, and then everything else is just another hustle, another long game. But I'm just so proud to even be here, that it's out there and that people are reading it and that people seem to be enjoying it. And there's people that probably don't enjoy it, and that's fine too. But I'm just happy it's to be here.
No, I love it. Yeah, I love it. And it's funny because I have friends too who send me pictures of your book in their local bookstores and things like that. They're like, "Oh, I saw Mia's book in Florida." And
Oh,
like they'll
that's
send
so
me pictures and
cool.
stuff. So it's like everybody's rooting for you and it's like so excited when they run into it. It's like so people are finding your book everywhere. It's really, really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I'm so happy whenever anyone tags me and like with a picture that they have, like seeing it in their hand, or in their local bookstore, like it makes authors so happy. So please do that.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah. But
Do
I
you
guess,
Well,
ever read the reviews on like Amazon and all
oh
that?
boy.
oh my God, I actually don't read reviews. Like I have my good friend Shreya reads them for me because I it's too soon. Like I don't know, I poured so much into it that it's like I can take feedback, but I think it's like after the fact, knowing I can't change anything, it's really hard. So she'll send me like the really nice ones or whatever, which is definitely nice to read and see what people say. And then definitely hearing like some parent read it to their 8-year-old, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope it's not too dark for them, you know. But it's just like it's just very heartwarming to hear that kids are enjoying it in particular because I don't know, I just I feel like there's so many different forms of entertainment than reading. So knowing that a kid read my book, it's like it warms my heart so much, and it's amazing. But
Like
real quick
five
shout out
star
to
reviews,
Mhm.
on Amazon, tons of people commenting. People are writing paragraphs. They're not just going, "It's all
Yeah.
right." My
No, they
kid read
actually
it.
they really do love it.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. That's cool.
Yeah. You're about to give a shout out.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like if anyone wants to support their favorite authors, it's something I don't think about is like even though I love books, I don't usually go into a bookstore specifically for an author event unless I know the person or it's like I'm a huge fan of theirs, you know. But that's something too that it's like it's a great way to support authors that you like, you know. Obviously if they have an event in your hometown, go out, you know. That's not a thing that's typically in our culture, you know, to do, right?
Oh,
But it just makes such a difference for authors. Like I know it would mean a lot to me, so I can only imagine other authors too. But even just going to your local bookstore and asking for the book if you don't see it there, it gives them so much more business. Like Amazon
mm,
owns like half the book business, and it's like we do need them, unfortunately, but bookstores need us more. So it's like if you can afford to wait a few days for your book to come in, like ordering a copy from them helps your local community, you know.
mm,
And same with your library. Like if you can't afford to buy the book, request it from your library. That helps authors too. And it takes a few weeks to get in circulation. But again, it's some things that we're used to instant gratification of when I want something, I want it now, and we go to Amazon for that stuff. But all that kind of independent bookstores and libraries really help authors as well. So I just want to keep them all in business. So that was just a little shout out I wanted to give.
that's awesome. Does the same apply to the audiobook for requesting it for the library?
Yeah, definitely requesting it from the library, but there's also Libro FM. They're like the bookshop.org of audiobooks. So they support independent bookstores as well. So they're really great. And Barnes and Noble also has their own audiobooks now. A lot of people don't know that.
Mm,
So you can definitely help authors out by getting your audiobooks from them. So
awesome. Oh, that's great, Mia. Well, everybody give a round of applause for Mia for just being amazing, finishing her project, doing such a great job, making something so beautiful and so compelling and profound, and something so personal and scary to do, and you did it. Look at you. You finished it. We were talking about this, and now you finished the project. You finished it.
I
That's
Tim
years
huge.
Fielder would be looking at you with that Mr. Miyagi smile on his face.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
A year ago now, I was still scrambling in here trying to finish. It's just so surreal how quickly time goes by too. So
Yeah. You were at Gen Con in your room painting the last piece, I believe, last year.
I was broken. I could not even paint that piece. That was the intention, but I was so burned out. I could not even paint. I had to, that was the story I didn't tell. That last illustration that I did digitally, I did on my vacation, my first vacation in 5 years, like right after Gen Con. We jumped on a plane the next day and I could not paint that painting until the end of the month. That's how burned out I was. But
Oh
luckily
my God.
they gave me that extra month to get it done, which is so nice of them. But I was like, dang it, I wish I had that extra month to finish all the things I didn't get to finish. Whatever.
No one will know. No one will
No
ever
one
know
will.
whatever it is that you didn't get to finish. All we see is what we see in front of us, and what we see in front of us is beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I
Ain't
just think
nobody picking
about
it
the
apart but you.
people, the children that you've now inspired to write their own, to create their own, to draw their own, and know that there is a space for them out there if they are intentional and that they paint the thing or they write the thing that they love most. Because you've done it and they can do it too.
Thanks, Eric.
So that's awesome.
If I
You've
can
created
inspire
a
any kid to make their own book instead of generating with AI, like I will be so happy because
oh
there's
my
nothing
God.
more satisfying than having made it with your own hands, I'm telling you, and figured it out with your own brain. There's nothing that compares to that. So
Do y'all ever get the moment where you finish a piece and you look at it, you're like, I just did that? Like, what? How did I do that? Like, you don't know how you did it. It's like, what? That was crazy.
It was pretty crazy.
You
Yeah.
can't have that. You don't get that feeling with AI. You just don't. You can't.
Yeah.
So it's always worth putting the effort. It's always worth learning something new. So, I mean, it's really inspiring to me, Mia. I really, I mean, I've wanted to make a book for a long, long time now. And I've been talking about it for ages. I can't wait until I'm not talking about it anymore because I've done it. So you really inspire me because like I know it's possible. I got to see it in real time. I got to see the ups and the downs.
And the down
Yeah,
part of
yeah,
it.
we all did. Yeah,
Oh my
We
God,
all did.
sorry.
No, don't apologize.
It's just so painful, but yeah, it's part of it, you know. You can experience those lows, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. So you can totally do it.
Yeah.
yeah. There
And it
were
was mostly you versus you.
many pre-show or post-show moments where we're just like want to hug you through the
Oh,
camera.
I was like
Or
melting
Like it'll
shake
down.
be
you
all right.
sometimes. Like Mia, I'm going to shake you right now. It's just like so funny the amount of times that I've said that.
And like keep me into the sun specifically, but yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna throw you into the sun a few times. That was good, but you got it done. But most of all, I just want to give you a big old hug. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see you again.
Thank you both so
I'll
much
see
too
you
for
next.
your help and your feedback. You're just both so amazing. So I couldn't have done it without you guys and all the other art, the other artists in my life that helped me when I was stuck. So
I gotta say, it was a huge honor to be any part of the process whatsoever. To be perfectly honest, like I don't know, it's a really special feeling when somebody trusts you enough to give feedback on something so deeply meaningful to you. And thank you for asking for our help. Seriously, it means the world to me that you did. Oh, Mia. But lastly, where can people purchase Afia and the Land of Wonders? What
definitely
are the best places? I know you said local bookstores, I know you said libraries, but where else?
Barnes and Noble, obviously, bookshop.org. They donate a percentage of every sale to you to the local bookshop of your choice. So you get to, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, those are the main places.
And you said that was bookshop.org, and we'll put this in the description below
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, they're great. I think they started over the pandemic and they've raised like millions of dollars for local bookstores. So they're really incredible.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome.
And
Yeah,
again,
I'm on the website now.
Libro FM does a similar thing with their audiobooks. So that's where you can get the audiobook, Audible, obviously, and Barnes and Noble. So yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mia. We're super proud of you. And thank you everybody in the chat and in the comments watching later for joining us. We really appreciate you listening. Please, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a comment, like and subscribe. Every little bit helps. Smash that notification button or I don't know, whatever. But if you want to join the conversation, it's been a while since I've updated this group, but the Painted in Color podcast discussion group on Facebook is still a thing. And also just, please check out our backlog of episodes. This is going to be our 79th, if I'm not mistaken. We have a lot of episodes, guys. So if you if you want to watch any more inspirational content, the real life of being an illustrator, all the things that we have explored and done in our careers, the ups and the downs, and believe me, we talk about all of it. Please feel free to listen while you're working, while you're cooking, anytime. Our stuff is there. We have tons and tons of content, so please check it out. But as always, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a lovely day, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.